And it's not I don't think it's a bad storyline. We've seen characters get redeemed that have absolutely done awful things and even crossed the line. Because to me, the final line you cross is when you kill someone, right? We've seen characters do that and then come back from that. It's possible. It's possible. I'm not against the direction they're taking. I think that sometimes the way things are represented in films, they don't they don't explain it enough, or they don't give us enough time as an audience to like really sit with what we're seeing, because sometimes they skip through things quickly. The movie was 2 hours and 30 minutes though. So, yeah, I understand the sadism, and to be honest with you, she like we have to take it back to that development, the moral development, right? When you look at children, I'm dead serious. Her parents were out of her life when she was a small child. So that is the age that her development morally was stunted, because there's no one teaching her about morals. She's not in school. So at that age, that's where it stopped. You look at a child. One child has an ice cream cone. Another child has an ice cream cone. They're both eating, enjoying their ice cream. One child drops their ice cream and they're crying about it because they dropped their ice cream. The other child looks. Now, maybe the other child isn't like that. Maybe they don't laugh. Maybe they don't point and laugh, but some might, right? But let's say they don't point and laugh, but the other kid sees that that child has their ice cream and they walk over and they pick their hand up and they scoop that ice cream out of the other kid's ice cream cone and start eating it. And when the other kid or starts crying because you just stole my ice cream, they're not gonna look at that kid and be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry that you're crying." They're gonna be like, "Who cares?" like, like I have no, I give not a single one about the fact that you're crying right now, because I'm so happy I'm eating my ice cream, and they're gonna happily stroll away. That's how it's gonna play out. But as adults being around kids, we see that happen all the time. We're the ones that have to step in and help them to understand. And it's gonna usually with some kids that are stubborn about it, like it takes a long time for that to happen, right? But you got to help them understand that that's not okay to do. But if there was no one around to do that, that's what they're gonna do. So take Jean Grey and in an emotional development uh, perspective, make her a child, because her development literally was stunted because her parents threw her out for being a mutant. So she's a that's true, but that's true, but that's always been an issue with just the X-Men in general and the mutants in general in Marvel. And I think that's why it was so complicated. At least maybe just for me. I mean, I can't say for sure, but I would imagine that that was a complicated issue with trying to figure out how do we properly introduce mutants to a world that has other superheroes, because before with all of the X-Men films, they made it so that it seemed like there were humans and there were mutants. There were no metas. There was nothing like that. There were nothing, you know? Like there were no mutates. It's just the mutants or the humans. And even in a lot of the comics that are very X-Men focused, they don't really add other people, they keep it really about the X-Men. And it's because it's hard. Look at all these people with powers, and then here come the mutants. They're just people with powers. Why are they different? I like the fact though, I like the fact that the way it was explained in the Fox X-Men films is that the mutant gene is what people are truly threatened by. And it like some people are obviously threatened by the power, but what they're more threatened by than anything else is the fear that if more of these mutants keep popping up, eventually humans will cease to exist. The type like regular humans. Yes, but I totally understand that, but now we have to go back to the inception of X-Men because the writers that created X-Men were purposely trying to showcase parallels during the civil rights movement, and they were trying to help people understand how racism makes literally no sense. The X-Men were were minorities and blacks, right? And then everyone else that was just a regular human was put in the class of white people in America. And it was looked through that perspective. Okay, you've got Martin Luther King Jr., who is Charles Xavier. He is pro peace. He wants mutants to show how amazing they are and helpful to society so that society will accept them. He doesn't want to use violence. And then you have Malcolm X, who's like, listen, we just want to segregate from y'all. We don't even want to be around y'all because we are better than you and we just want to be separate. But if you try to get in our way, we're going to do what we got to do to you, right? That's Malcolm X. And that's Magneto. That's where the mutants started. They were trying to talk about that. Now, when you take the X-Men and you throw them in a world where other people have powers, they just weren't born with them. It complicates things. It complicates things. I don't think there's any easy way around it, but I thought the coolest answer that at least came up was the fact that mutants themselves have a gene that they were born with. Gene, right? A gene that they were born with, and that gene is not that gene is threatening to regular humans because for them it is a sign that the human race is dying out and soon will cease to exist. And I think that parallel, I don't know if the writers intended that when they made it. But I think whoever did think of that idea, whether they came across this uh or not, there is a story, a book. What is it? Uh the book is Journey of the Songhai People. Let me pull that up. Journey of the Songhai People. And doop doop doop. Okay. By Calvin Russell Robinson, Edward W. Robinson, and Redmond Battle. It's three different writers that contributed to the book. Yeah. And what they tried to do in that book was to piece together the tapestry of world culture that was deliberately unraveled by the Europeans. That is the focus. So they're talking about African culture and just world culture as a whole before European nations, invaded and then colonized these different places. And it also dove into how certain people in the world just loathe African Americans and consistently disrespect them and try to get rid of them, right? And at one point in the book, I remember they spoke about groups like the whatchamacallit, this like skinheads, like and they were talking about the mentality and their reasoning behind why they hate people of color is that if people of color are able to exist or at least be around us and then they start populating with our women and men, right? Like we start commingling and populating, eventually our race will cease to exist. That was the pressing motivation for them to do the things they did. That was where the fear literally derived from. They thought that they were going to be genetically wiped off the face of the planet if they allowed the races to mingle. And that's exactly how the X-Men or just mutants and normal humans in the X-Men universe, that's how they treated that. Or the normal humans are just erased. They're afraid that they're going to be erased from existence genetically if they if they allow mutants to be around them or if they don't just eradicate them first. So I like that. I like that. And I think that they're going to probably have to use that route in the Disney movies moving forward. If they're going to introduce mutants, they're going to have to go that route, because how else can you really go in a way that makes sense for the reason the characters were even established in the first place, to reflect the civil rights movement, segregation, racism. That's why they were created. So how are you going to reflect that if not by going that route? But Disney does what they do. Charles Xavier taught the X-Men, some of the X-Men, about how to be morally sound, because it did not come to them intuitively. Jean Grey was one of those people who did not have an intuitive moral compass. In fact, she had a very fractured mind due to the trauma of her past. In some comics where she kills her friend, in maybe the movies like where she kills her parents, or even in this movie where she essentially is not strong enough to save her sister and her sister dies. But there's some sort of traumatic event that fractures her mind and also creates like almost like a split personality, because the Phoenix Force is not evil, like you said. The Phoenix Force is a power that could be used for good or evil. But because it entered her and she has a side of her that is just absolutely wicked and sadistic, she, not originally, right? That was added in. Um that part of her, right. That part of her comes out sometimes with the Phoenix Force added to it, and that's just a really bad matchup. Um So it depends on which version of Jean Grey we're working with, but for the most part, from what I see in the modern comics, or more modern, I'm talking like 2006 and on, even a little bit earlier, is that Jean Grey does have a fractured mind and she does have two personalities, and that the Dark Phoenix is really just an expression of her dark personality mixed with the Phoenix Force. I agree. I don't think that it's a good understanding of the character, because if they wanted to go with that version of Jean Grey in this film, they could have shown that her mind is fractured, which they did not. They could have also shown that there is a part of her that wants to do good, and there's a part of her that enjoys doing bad. Instead, they tried to make her this character that seemed to enjoy doing bad up until the point where she realized her sister was dead. And upon realizing her sister was dead, did not stop doing bad. She actually decided she wanted to do the ultimate bad and kill everybody within the radius that she was able to reach for simply existing. It was slowly expanding, yes, as her power was increasing. So she was willing to kill everyone. She had no feeling telling her, oh, yeah, let me not do this. She was literally willing to kill everyone right then and there. And the only thing that stopped her was Spider-Man. He came in and he was able to convince her to not do the ultimate evil by killing all of those people, all of those innocent people. She had already taken out some innocent lives in the film up until this point, and I think they were showing like this version of Jean Grey that went down this slippery slope. She already didn't have the set of morals she was supposed to have, because clearly she wasn't raised by great parents. Um, from the conversation she was having with her sister Sarah Gray, they lost her mother very early on in their lives, and they were just taking care of one another. So two children with powers taking care of one another, one a little older, probably had to deal with a little more, right? Well, boom. Their morals were never fully developed. They're probably in the first, second stage at best, morally. And that first stage is basing right and wrong off of just how it affects you. If something hurts you, it's wrong. If something makes you feel good, it's right. Well, it makes them feel good to control people. So that's the right thing to do, and they should be able to do it. It doesn't make them feel good when a person comes and captures one of them. So now that person is deemed evil, even though they were using their powers to hurt people and kind of control them and mess people's brain up or whatever they were doing at that point. And now they are seeing themselves as the good guy. And when we look at characters that are evil, but also complex and evil, at least the ones I like, they're the ones that have a real desire for something. The thing that they're pursuing, they do believe is good. Now, by societal standards, the way they're going about it is totally wrong. But by their standards, it's totally fine. And that's what makes them evil. It's doing something that you deem is good, but society deems is not good, but you're going through to great lengths to accomplish this thing with means that are not good, you know. So she was willing to kill whoever she needed to kill, do whatever she needed to do, even essentially try to violate Spider-Man, because that's what she was doing, right? Like oh well, yeah, that's true. She successfully violated Spider-Man, and she even took pleasure in the fact that she was doing it because for her, it's like winning this game. It's she's getting what she wants by getting him out of the way. And she's enjoying that she has the ability to do that, that she's finally like one upped him, especially since she couldn't enter his mind. So she's like, okay, well, I wasn't able to enter your mind. That's a first for me, but I was able to outsmart you. Right. And at this point in time, yes, her character is evil because she believes she's doing the right thing for her own reasons. And she's going about her goal the wrong way, because there's nothing wrong with searching for your sister that got captured. What's wrong is searching for your sister by killing people, running through the city, destroying all types of property, and even mentally graping your or anybody, Spider-Man in this case, right? And at the end of the film, she kind of gets that talk from Aunt May about responsibility, right? She gets a portion of that with great responsibility conversation from Aunt May. And then she also gets a further portion from Aunt May explaining to her that when you have these abilities, you're going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. Don't lose your humanity. And don't forget that even if the people that you love, something happens to them or whatever, their expectation of you is to be good. And you moving through life doing the right thing is how you honor them. And that's your responsibility too. So you can't let the power get to your head and then you turn into an evil person, which is exactly what she did, right? She let the power get to her head and she thought because she has the ability to do something that she should. And that's something that you learn through the stages of development, especially through the stages of moral development. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Sure, I can take this weapon and go hurt somebody because they have in some way violated me and I'm emotional about it. That doesn't mean I should. And society says we actually should not, which is why there are consequences when you do. If you do take that weapon and go hurt this person because they violated you in some way, you're going to go to jail. You're going to suffer consequences because there's a way of doing it where there's order and justice can be properly fulfilled in an organized way. So, Jean Grey in this movie is a character that started out as evil because she literally did not have a moral compass to base her decisions off of, other than maybe her first or maybe second stage of moral development that says, ooh, this doesn't make me feel good, therefore it's bad, and me trying to make it stop or changing it makes me good. That's it. It's that simplistic. Until she gets the speech from Aunt May where Aunt May breaks it down. No, there's more to that. There's more to that, and you have a responsibility to do this, this, and this for the people that care about you. So now she has all that to think about. And in thinking about that, she's processing that before Peter got shot. Once Peter got shot, she kind of she's taken back to the scenario where her sister was captured. Now, she could have in that moment been like, "That's it. I'm done. He got shot too. Now I literally have no one and that's it." And then just snapped her fingers and killed off everybody, right? But she didn't because now in the back of her mind, she's thinking about what Ame is saying and she's realizing that if she's going to do something, if she's going to take action to do something, it should be something that is respectful of the people she's doing it for and a good representation of herself instead of a bad one. So she decides to save Peter instead of killing everyone else to get revenge. And she puts all of her focus and effort into that for what we see as like a full night. Like he was in the hospital for a full day, a full whatever rest of that day, and then overnight and then portion into that day again. She's just focusing on trying to keep him alive while trying to like escape the city, right? So doing that, putting all of her energy into that, allowed him to come back to life. At the end of the movie, she's not good yet. She's a character that just did a whole lot of bad that has the opportunity to become good because she's been exposed to good. She's been touched by good, which is why I really like the fact that they allowed her to go into Peter's mind because it's like by going into his mind, she's now taking a part of him with her, and the parts of him that made him good are now a part of her too. And now she can properly pause and think and develop her decisions to be like him instead of going based on what very little she had and being the way she was before. That doesn't mean that everything she did is going to be taken back, but is that really the first time we've seen a character get violated, do awful things, and, eventually come back from it? Yeah, there's a limit. Of course there's a limit, but look at the Punisher. Look at the Punisher. Like but that's the thing. That's the thing. The Punisher is not evil though. The Punisher is not pure he's not pure evil, and yes, he's not good. However, through the comics and even in this movie, they're showing that over time, being around heroes, the Punisher does develop. He never really in the comics lets go from what I from what I've read. He never fully lets go of his search for justice and his fight against, crime, right? But he tones down quite a bit from when he started because when Punisher started, he was scorched earth. And people they're out there going to be like, "Well, he wasn't killing innocents." That's not really true. Um he was willing to kill whatever superhero got in his way. A superhero is a person that literally fights for justice. They're telling you to stop because what you're doing is not justice and you're willing to kill them. Well, you're just killing an innocent person. You're killing someone that had nothing to do with revenge. They didn't kill your family. They didn't do anything to you. They're trying to stop you from doing what you're doing because it's not right. So you're killing innocents. Punisher has absolutely tried to do that. And listen, the way he blasts around in the city, I'm sure people sometimes get caught in the crossfire. Let's look at the way he treated the police, right? The police are trying to stop him. Is he using non-lethal options on all these people? Hell no. A lot of these people just straight up die. They're innocent too. But the Punisher over time, but the Punisher over time comes to realize that's not cool. And even though he never fully develops to be this like completely non-lethal character, he learns to focus his energy and his vengeance on the people that actually deserve it and not on anyone else. And that was what we got to see in this movie and in some comics and even some animations. They show how Punisher kind of develops into that. He's still going to be the Punisher, though. That's who he is. Jean Grey, the best way they can develop her, in my opinion, moving forward, is to show that she is repentant of what she did, and make her desire to repent the biggest motivation for her being a superhero. So putting herself in harm's way, sacrificing herself, saving people, making her motivation for doing all of that, feeling that she needs to repent for the people that she hurt when she herself was doing doing wrong.